Hello and welcome to this Forex Preview at xm.com. We'll be discussing the upcoming Bank of Japan decision and the potential reaction in the yen. I'm Maria Pachardez, and joining me is Senior Investment Analyst Harlambos Pisuros. So Harlambos, on Friday, Japan's new central bank chief, Kazuo Ueda, will hold a news conference after his debut policy meeting. Can you tell us a bit about what the Bank of Japan decided at the last meeting back on March 10th? And if we're likely to see any policy changes at this meeting with Ueda in the driver's seat?
Hello, Maria. Yes, the last time Bank of Japan policymakers met, they decided to keep all policy settings untouched. And so they disappointed those expecting further widening of the yield control band. They explained that they did so because inflation seems to be fueled by import costs of raw materials rather than strong domestic demand. Now, since taking the helm, Ueda has dropped some hints that the massive stimulus will eventually be phased out, but he reassured investors that changes will not happen quickly. Like most of his new colleagues, he also believes that inflation in Japan is not fueled by domestic demand. And by repeatedly highlighting that the current stance remains appropriate, he may be trying to avoid any surge in long-dated yields. Now, on the data front, headline inflation slowed in March, but the month-over-month rate rebounded more strongly than expected. And the core year-over-year CPI rate stayed unchanged. Now, this may have stimulated, at the time of the release, expectations of a normalization step sooner rather than later, but it is far from suggesting that a change is imminent. After all, the latest CPI data followed a steep slowdown during the month of February, which confirmed the narrative that inflation in Japan may be largely imported. On top of that, despite unions agreeing with employers on raising salaries by the most since 1993, Bank of Japan officials may not only prefer to wait for the agreement to be reflected in the data, but also for evidence that there is sustained momentum in wage increases before they proceed with removing further accommodation.
So if the most likely outcome is again no action, what will investors watch out for, and what reaction can we expect to see in the yen?
Now, if we get the no action scenario, investors are likely to be looking for clues and hints on when and what kind of tightening the bank will deliver in coming months. At his inaugural speech on April 10th, Ueda said that the lowered US and Japanese yields after the financial turmoil decreased the urgency to tweak yield curve control. So anything suggesting that the bank will stay the course through the summer may disappoint those expecting action soon, and this is likely to prove negative for the yen. On the other hand, if we do get hints that another tweak may be appropriate at the upcoming gatherings, the yen could strengthen due to renewed market attacks on the upper limit of the target band around the 10-year yield. However, bearing in mind that the Bank of Japan seems to not be willing to intervene. They don't want another attack near the upper end of their yield curve control band. I don't believe that they will provide at this meeting at least strong tightening signals.
Harlambos, thanks so much. And thanks for joining us for this Forex Preview at xm.com.